Welcome to today's webinar. We'll be talking about the Exelon Utilities Data Catalog today. My name is Stephanie McReynolds, and I am the head of marketing here at Alation. I am joined by Yannis Katsanos. And before we get started, there are a number of folks that are still filtering into the call. So it's become my tradition to share a little bit of humor with folks before we start the webinar. So I have selected what I hope is a humorous cartoon on data analysts in the energy sector. As most folks know, smart buildings have become, at least in the media, a very popular topic to talk about in the utility sector. And this data analyst is getting a surprise in the deluge of data that is coming back from the smart building that he's monitoring. So Yannis is going to be talking about the deluge of data that Exelon is seeing. Exelon last year was placed number 92 on the Fortune 500, so a large and growing utilities company that I am sure sees a lot of data, not just from smart buildings, but from each of our meters as consumers if you live in the region that one of Exelon's 6 utilities supports. They have over a wide number of customers, and Yannis will be sharing with us in a few minutes the Exelon story and how data catalogs are being used to deal with that deluge of data. So we'll pause just a minute or so to let other folks into the line. Hope you're enjoying the cartoon that we have up. And I will be shortly going over some housekeeping notes as folks enter the webinar. If you're having any technical difficulties this morning, please do use the chat window to let us know what the technical difficulty is, and one of our team members at Alation will respond to you right away and make sure you can listen in as the content gets started on today's webinar. All right, so it looks like most folks have filtered in, so we'll go ahead and move off of the humor for this morning and get started with our content. Today's webinar from start to finish will be about 60 minutes. We will be leaving 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the presentation for Q&A. Feel free, however, to ask questions as they come up. We want this to be an interactive session. We love to hear what's top of mind for you as an attendee. And the benefit of listening to this live versus the recording is you have an opportunity to ask Yannis or myself questions as we go along. If you are interested in asking a question, we ask that you use the console for GoToMeeting. That is the tab that is labeled questions. It should be about midway down in your console on the right-hand side. And that's where we'll be queuing up questions. Please do just type your question in that space in the application whenever it comes to mind, and we'll queue them up. I may interrupt Yannis if there's a relevant question, and others will queue to the end. As I mentioned, we like this to be interactive, so if you do hear something that you're interested in or something you'd like to share with others, please feel free to tweet the observations you have today. Our handle here is @Alation, and we'll be monitoring the hashtag data catalog. For anyone who was hoping to see a product demo today, unfortunately, we won't be demoing the Alation product. We're really going to focus on Yannis' story on how Exelon and ComEd, more specifically, is using Alation in their environment. So there'll be some screenshots, but no demo today. If you would like a demo, feel free to go to our website, alation.com/learn-more, and one of our sales development representatives will be happy to show you a demo. And the last announcement for housekeeping I have today is everyone who's attending will get an email within the next 24 to 48 hours with the replay of the demonstration. So if for any reason you have to drop off or you really like the content and would like to share it with a colleague, look for that email from Alation in your inbox within the next day or so. So once again, any questions go into the questions tab, and any technical issues you may be experiencing, please use the chat window to get help. And hopefully that's enough housekeeping to get us started. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, my name is Stephanie McReynolds, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at Alation. I am very, very pleased to have on the line with me Yannis Katsanos. And Yannis is the head of customer data science for Exelon Utilities. As I mentioned, Exelon is the parent company to 6 different utilities companies, including ComEd, which we'll be talking about their use of the data catalog a little later today. Yannis also has just a tremendous wealth of experience in the customer analytics and data space. Maybe a little known fact, but I was pretty impressed that Yannis started his career at CERN in a research capacity. He has a PhD in physics from Columbia, so we maybe have high hopes for the insights he's going to bring given that academic background. But he also has a wealth of hands-on knowledge, over 15 years of experience analyzing large and complex data sets as a VP of data science at IRI, where he learned about customer behavior, supporting analytics products for consumer packaged goods company. And then, of course, today he's with Exelon as a head of their customer data science group. And so I am very pleased to turn the floor over to Yannis, who's going to talk a little bit first about the vision that Exelon has for analytics in the utility space, and then walk us through the detail of how they're starting to implement that with a data catalog as one of their core investments. And so as Yannis takes the floor, I'll just welcome everyone again to the webinar, and appreciate everyone's attendance today. If you are having any technical issues or have any questions, please feel free to use the chat window for technical issues, or the question window on your right-hand side to enter questions. And I'm having a little bit of a hard time, Yannis. Here we go. Passing control to you, but I think it's on its way, so that we can get started with your content.
Yes, so hopefully everyone can see my screen now. First of all, Stephanie, thank you very much for the nice introduction, and certainly thank you for the invitation to give this webinar. I would like to start by saying what is Exelon Utilities. Exelon overall, which is the parent company, we are the largest electric parent company in the United States by revenue. I mean, there is always a way to slice that information. And we have about 34,000 employees. Now, Exelon Utilities is a part of Exelon. We are not concerned about the generation of the electricity and the marketing function of where the customer buys the electricity from. We mainly concerned to transfer energy, the electrons, from point A, which is the interconnection to our grid, to point B, which is where you use electricity to do your day-to-day stuff. I sometimes want to compare it to being sort of like the highway network that would not really care what type of car you have. We just make sure that you go from point A to point B. Now, saying that Exelon Utilities has 6 companies. We serve about 10 million customers. That means 10 million delivery points. Or overall, if you want to think about it, we serve about 25 million customers. So what we do certainly touches lives and our modern life way of living. We serve the Baltimore region with BGE, the Philadelphia region with PICO. Then with PHI, we serve DC area Delaware, Maryland, and Southern New Jersey, and ComEd, which is by the number of customers, the largest utility. We serve 4 million customers that they live in Northern Illinois, including the Chicago area. Now, you may start thinking, well, okay, Exelon Utilities, it is a company that has been around in different incarnations for more than a century. So what does Exelon Utilities want to do with data? And what do we do with analytics in general? And do we really have adequate data sets? Well, that was a question that was placed a few years ago, and we realized that certainly we have enough data. I mean, we collect data sets at the rate of more than a dozen the companies that drive our technology revolution. That is just only a small subset, but you can think of it as one of the largest IoT operations out there, having 10 million points that transmit data to the operating companies day in and day out. So when we initially started thinking, okay, we have all that data coming in, what now? What can we do? The first thing that was done, of course, was to create a small data science team. But the second was, let's start thinking about our strategy. So what happened is we ended up dividing our business operations into 5 distinct groups. One of the first one is the smart energy services, which includes everything that we do from the energy efficiency aspect. That was the first effort that went online, including several online tools that our customers have access to and notifications. And the last couple of years, we have driven a significant number of customer savings. And overall, we are calculating that will drive about 3.1 terawatt hours of customer savings. And to be honest, that number means very little to me, even though I have a PhD in physics. But if you can think about it, it is enough to power more than 300,000 homes for a year. That's certainly a big number. The second area of where we can take advantage of our data is the customer operations. This is another bucket where we mainly look into how we communicate with our customers, making sure that we optimize our revenue cycle. We get insight into our customers so we can drive products and services that our customers want and be able to enhance the customer experience while we automate some low-value interactions. The third part is what we call grid, which is mainly making sure that the electron makes it from point A to point B. And this is a focus of reliability, make sure that we optimize our grid operations, predictive maintenance, and things like that. When I mentioned earlier about 10 million customers, 10 million service points, that really means 10 million meters. And now being in the age of the smart meters, we can get more frequent readings of your usage. So we are able to build analytics based on that extra data set, those 10 million IoT devices being out there in the field. And we can certainly optimize meter operations. We can optimize the network operations on how data are being served back from those meters. And what is really interesting is being able to increase our detection of energy theft. I'm sure that not many of us think about it, but there is certainly a part of the population that they are trying to get energy by bypassing the meter. Nowadays, with having a closer interaction with those smart meters, it becomes easier for us to detect those theft attempts and, of course, take early action so we are able to identify those people. The fifth domain is the business support, or what we call it, everything else that helps driving our business. So you can think safety, you can think fleet management, you can think finance operations, HR operations, and of course, what certainly a lot of thought is going towards that. It is what is the next operating model for our business on what we call utility of the future. Now, in order to support these initiatives, what we have built is the so-called data analytics platform. The data analytics platform has its goal to be the repository of data for all of our source systems, and the area where the data scientists can go in and analyze the data, but not only that, but acting as a single source of truth, have the business analysts being able to get a good source of information. As I said earlier, Exelon overall has 34,000 employees. You can imagine if just 10% of them run reports, we are talking about 3,500 people, and all those reports need to give the same result. So that is a big undertaking for this data analytics platform layer, and includes a lot of effort trying to understand what is the data that we put in there. And that is going to be the focus of these presentations and the rest of our story. Now, as I mentioned, we are bringing a lot of source data into this utility analytics platform. What does that mean? Well, currently, and by currently I mean earlier, late last year, we had imported about 65 source systems. Overall, for the duration of the program, we expect to ingest data from about 115 data sources, and these are the data sources that we have identified till now. I'm sure between now and the next couple of years, more data sources will be identified and more information will be added in our data lake, this data analytics platform. Now, if you think how most of us operate, we do have access to a couple of data sources, and that is how we run our analytics. We build our reports, we create insights, and we mainly drive our day-to-day business. Suddenly, imagine from having access to only a couple of data sources being able to have access to 120 data sources. That would be too much data, too much information to be able to ingest properly. And there are two options. Either the data there in that data analytics platform will remain unused, or you will try to find correlations and drive insights that, of course, are false, because let's not forget, correlation does not imply causation. And that is the big problem that we have. Well, do we really know what is all the data that we bring in this data analytics platform, and we make it available to both our data scientists and our business analysts? That is a problem that we have struggled for a very long time, and we realized that we need something to teach us about our data, but not only that, be able to have an entry point into this new data ecosystem that we are building. as you can see on this design that we have put in front of you, and I will try to describe it very briefly. The Alation layer is the entry point to that world for not only for the data scientist, but for the average business user, where they will be able to search the available data, asset availability, usage, quality, etc. And this self-service layer with Alation on it will read data from our data analytics platform that then will ingest data from all the source systems that you have. And that is what will drive you your analytics. That is what will drive you the self-service discovery and the report building and all that. Now, a question that I do get quite often, it is, why you guys? Why are you doing that? I mean, you are data scientists, your role is to create models. Someone gives you the data, you build models, and then you give those models to other people that will create the insights from those models. That is one perspective. The view that we take is, as a data science team, we are responsible for the full chain of data analytics. That means we are responsible to find where the data lives, sometimes collect the data and put it into another format or medium, be able to combine all that data together from the disparate sources, even though there may not be easily identifiable keys, but be able to do matching through other variables and or creating some fuzzy matching based on business and analytics driven logic. And of course, when you have all that, then we are responsible of cleaning that data. Once we have the clean data set that we built, then we can run our advanced analytics using our software and the available hardware, etc. Create the insights from that data, and then be able to make suggestions to our business partners that they help us in many areas of the previous journey that I described, and be able to create actionable plans together and drive the desired outcomes. So being responsible for all that chain, we are certainly responsible for the data and responsible for the quality of the result and the insight that we provide. So we have, if you want to call it, a skin on the game to make sure that we understand our data quite well and not rush into creating analytics without having a good understanding and explore our data. At some point, what my team can say, even ad nauseum. Yes, sir?
We have a couple of questions that have come in that might be great for you to take a pause point and answer them. One is an observation, I think, from your architecture slide that you're not connecting Alation to your transactional systems. And the question is, do you rely on another metadata tool to monitor that data? And if so, how does it integrate with Alation? Or are you comfortable sharing a little bit of detail on how that works?
Yes, so our initial approach back when we created this architectural design, it was that for business users and data scientists, we are going to have only one source of truth, and that would be our data analytics platform. And we will not bother that much with the transactional source systems. Now, since then, certainly that view has changed, and we have started connecting a curated selection of our transactional source systems, and now we have the challenge: how do we make sure that information flows properly from the catalog for one system to the same catalog for another system? And we have built the functionality using the APIs that Alation provides. But at some point we had sort of like this philosophical, if you want, debate with our IT partners. And as business users, we have a different definition of what a catalog or a metadata management system should do that what IT wants from a similar system. So for example, IT wants to make sure that the data move properly from one system to the other, and when business asks, they can provide the lineage. From our perspective, it was like, okay, lineage is good, but I care more about the data after they land into my data analytics platform. Then I do care about the lineage within those tables that I can get from Alation. The lineage from the source system to the data analytics platform, even though it is a good information to have, it is not that critical, but at the same time, we can ingest information from that lineage tool, treating it as another source system. And I hope that answers the question.
It does, thank you. And I think maybe you can answer this next one as you present the next section, which I know is more on the data catalog and how it works. But the question is how do you have admin roles that are responsible for reviewing and adding the metadata to enhance discovery of the data? How many people? Is it a full-time employee? And so maybe as you're talking in the next section about the data cataloging initiative, maybe you could work that answer in.
Yeah, exactly. Let's table this for later because we are addressing it on the later parts of my presentation, and then we can talk more deeply about the numbers that we have of people on keyboards. So now, if we go back to our supporting technology, and mainly what we were thinking when we ran into Alation. So at some point we had realized that we had a problem with all those systems that we were ingesting, and we started having discussions amongst ourselves and with our IT and business partners, like, okay, how can we avoid turning the data lake that we are building to a data swamp, which is the most modern terminology. Excuse me. So we were thinking, well, what we would like from such a system? Well, certainly we want to be able to get the information ourselves. We shouldn't reach out to other people. We should have a relationship between SMEs and knowledgeable people about data with the data elements. There is always someone who knows our data, but usually they are unknown to the vast population of business users and very hard to locate. In order to make that tool available to everyone, it should be, you should use a plain English to do the search and not some cryptic queries. And then you should be able to find tables, queries, dashboards if possible, and have information on those data catalog pages that ideally you can even issue warnings. Hey, you know, this is a deprecated table. Please don't use it if you want to get proper results and things like that. Initially, we were having some ideas on how to build something like that internally, who should use it, how easy it is. And, you know, being a data scientist, you always think that new processes are very easy to build, especially having a physics background. But at some point we said, well, maybe we should just try to identify what exists in the market. And that is how our collaboration with Alation started. Touching a little bit, who should be the users of that system? I mean, certainly we touched on the data engineer, data scientist power user type, where they will be able to add information to that catalog, be able to create and share best practices, and mainly being, I wouldn't say the owners of the data, but the owners of the information about the data. Then you have the people that are business analysts. They are being asked on a very frequent frame to create reports. They should be able to understand what data elements are available out there to create the reports, make sure that they know the best practices. And sometimes whenever they uncover information that has not been properly documented, being able to add that information themselves, may that be for data elements or for already available and existing reports. And the last type is the business me, sort of like people that usually report the consume the reports or data extracts. And what they need is get the report that they want, the data that they want as soon as they can, and they just need to find the information quickly. With that in mind, I want to say where we are now on our journey, and currently we are creating the content for the identified systems. That may be the variables that we care about in the data analytics platform, but propagating that information back to the source systems, because users out there, business users, SMEs, may not be aware of the data analytics platform. They may have access only to one system, but they certainly need information about those similar data elements. And currently we have about 7 to 9 people that do this job. Mainly what we do is like we start developing a use case. We say, well, in order, let's say, to create a propensity model, what information do we need? Where can we find that information? And as part of our exploratory data analysis, we tick another box, which is creating the content for those systems. As we move forward, we keep adding more systems in the data catalog. As I mentioned earlier, we changed our original thinking, which was for the foreseeable future, starting now, data analytics platform will be the only source of data. We understand that we need to support current business needs, and in order to do that, we need to provide information for the source systems. And at the same time, we want to create this community of practice with business and data means. What that means, it is when we go after a use case, we do not do that in isolation. We always partner with someone in our in business who requested or who will benefit from a particular use case. And together with them, we explore the data sets and we ask questions. They describe sometimes which variables they have used in the past, how they have done a report or how they use data. And together with them, we certainly we create the content for those systems, but then we expose that content to our business partners and say, hey, you know something, in the future, if someone else comes with the same question, here is what we have done for you. You will not need to spend another 1, 2, 3 hour long meetings. You can just point them into this web address and they will be able to find the information that you just described to us in there. And we give them examples. Now, what we want to do, given that we see Alation part of our self-service strategy and part of our whole analytics culture, we wanted to expand the existing data catalog to include data quality information. I mean, we can add this data quality information on the page of the table or on the page of the variable. And then in the future, what we want to do is, for those of us who are a little bit more visually inclined than just reading a number in a list of numbers, we can even point them to a dashboard that we have built using data quality information from Alation and our exploratory data analysis. But driving the self-service concept, what we found, it is you may make the entrance level significantly easier for your business partners. We sort of like go with the easy button concept. Well, let's just press a button and you will get to the data set that you have asked us. We realized that when we reached our business partners with that proposition and that solution already in place, they were a little bit skeptical because in the past, they knew that they would request the data from someone, that someone will spend a few days, will run the queries, will do some data quality on the result, and then the results that will provide, the data that will provide to the business partners will be cross-checked multiple times. So now we try to convince our business partners, like, yeah, we do the same thing. We just do it automatically behind the scenes. You just press a button. But they are not so trusting, if you want to call it, that the same level of data quality happens in the backend. So we are thinking, what if we start with the information that we have into Alation, but then create an internal data marketplace? So what we mean, it is combine the data catalog with the endorsement system that already is there, the scoring system, being able to create data sets that they are gold, silver, bronze, depending on the data quality and to what our business partner wants, that then can be exposed to our business partners, either through a compose query that they can then run themselves and be able to download the data, or at that point, once we expose through Alation, like, yes, this is the gold data set that you need for your use case, provide there a button and cover all that query information from them and just be able to deliver the data set to them according to their needs. And that is where my presentation is concluded. Thank you very much for your attention, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thanks, Yannis. Well, you have kicked off quite a discussion in the questions that are coming in. There probably are about 10 questions asking something along the lines of how organizationally the different roles interact with one another and with Alation. So, you know, on that last side, you talk quite a bit about having a team of 7 to 9 data hunters, if you would, folks who are going out and sourcing data for the business community. But I think the nature of the questions are more about formal stewardship roles and how you split time between formal stewards and crowdsourcing information from the end business users. And how is Exelon thinking about that and maybe balancing those two out? And do both of those parties use Alation today?
Yes. So going back to the question of formal stewardship, to be absolutely honest with you, we do not have the concept yet of the formal data steward. And to be absolutely honest with you, if someone would give me the choice, hey, we can give you funds for one data steward or funds for one data scientist, being me, I would go for the data scientist. What we are trying to do is crowdsourcing the information because the data stewards are out there. I mean, based on the data we have, we are running our business today. So what we are doing with Alation is mainly uncovering those data stewards, being able to identify them, and for particular variables or tables or systems that we know they are the experts, we sort of assign their names into those variables. And they are always very, what we have noticed, these people that they have the knowledge, they are very helpful because they see the value of, instead of answering questions independently to several requesters over email, having a system where they can document their knowledge and they can answer questions to many people through discussions.
Great, thanks, Yannis. I know there's a ton of other questions, and we'll try to revisit some of them at the end of today's presentation. I wanted to share a little bit about Alation and how some of the other customers are using Alation for formal stewardship programs and for crowdsourcing metadata and answers back from customers as well, so that everyone on the line gets a little bit of a sense of not only how do things work at Exelon and ComEd, but how are these customers that you see on this slide and more using Alation today. Alation has delivered a data catalog to market for almost just over 4 years now. And we have over 100 production implementations of the data catalog at a wide variety of companies. So there are many examples to look at if you're looking for advice on how to structure your stewardship programs and a data catalog, and even a number of these customers, along with Exelon and the ComEd team, are looking at data marketplaces as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're seeing across the board with a data catalog as a foundation for true business outcomes. So as Yannis mentioned, in the utility space, they're looking to deliver a better customer experience and use some of this data coming in from new sensors and IoT devices in the field to support new products and advice to consumers. Companies like Pfizer are using Alation as a data catalog that's having impact on their innovation, their ability to identify rare heart disease. Transthyretin cardiomyopathy is a disease that affects less than 1% of heart disease patients. And the data catalog was used cross-functionally by Pfizer teams to collaborate on identifying some algorithms that could identify those individuals that were exhibiting that particular disease, and to connect them with new breakthrough drugs that might address their health issues in a more targeted way. Entirely different industry, but Munich Reinsurance is a worldwide insurance company. And one of their breakthroughs with the data catalog was getting their teams in New Jersey and Houston and Germany collaborating around opportunities to ensure wind turbines and affect the green energy movement and climate change. And with Alation, those teams were able to identify that they were working on similar business problems, that they were trying to find algorithms and develop new insurance analytic products that would support reinsuring wind turbines end to end. And they were able to bring that new end-to-end product to market and have significant financial impact for the company, as well as address a market that was underserved in the insurance industry. Another example, and I could keep going, as I mentioned, all those logos on the prior page have really interesting stories about how Alation is impacting their business. But I think for folks who are thinking about what is the impact on individual users of a data catalog, GoDaddy has a particularly relevant story. As a technology company, they have a team of very data-driven individuals who are fairly self-service oriented and self-sufficient in using Tableau and other tools to run their own analytics. For GoDaddy, this combination of formal stewardship as well as crowdsourced curated content by end users enabled them to deliver the right documentation for accuracy in their analytics about 40% faster than they were delivering that documentation before. And that included things like an accurate business glossary, as well as scoring on different data sets. Like Yannis mentioned, that idea of a gold data set or a silver data set or a bronze data set, and being very transparent about how to use the data as a result of its accuracy or quality. So those business outcomes may seem a little far away if you're just starting your journey with a data catalog, or just thinking about how a data catalog might influence your organization. So I did want to share what we've learned by working very closely at Alation with those 100+ production customers. And I think that one of the surprising learnings about a data catalog, Yannis touched on a little earlier, that a data catalog, its value and its ability to drive business outcomes comes not so much from supporting the IT team, or the engineers in the organization, the data engineers. The value of a data catalog and folks that we see who really grow their implementations quickly, the value of a data catalog is coming from the delivery of analyst productivity first and foremost. And the reason why is that by delivering some value to those end users, those consumers of the data, you're actually opening up an opportunity to receive more crowdsourcing of the details back. And so it's the idea that it's everyone's responsibility to keep the metadata and the understanding of that data up to date. That idea comes very naturally when you're delivering a data catalog that's meeting the productivity needs of the individual analyst or data scientist. Alation makes this particularly easy by providing not only a standard catalog interface or a search and discovery interface, but we've taken our data catalog to the next step with a tool called Compose. And Yannis mentioned this a little earlier in the presentation, but this is a screenshot of Compose, which is particularly targeted at users who do know some SQL. So this is a little bit of a more advanced tool. But what you're seeing in this screenshot is that Compose has a capability that the catalog powers called SmartSuggestions. And SmartSuggestions, as someone is typing their SQL query, is actually making recommendations about the data that is most relevant to complete this query. That analysis of data that is most relevant comes from what's been curated by humans in the catalog, but also leverages machine learning and AI techniques to calculate and evaluate what is the best fit for data for a query that's being executed. In this case, the recommendation is that there's a lookup table that has a gender code of male in it. And so the analyst doesn't have to remember where that lookup table is, what's involved in that lookup table. They're just typing into their SQL male or the beginning letters for male, and they're getting the recommendation of the appropriate table to reference as they complete their query. These types of suggestions in most organizations are increasing analyst productivity somewhere between 20 and 40%. And so the day-to-day experience of those end users of the data, their work is being sped up so that they can increase their time to value and shorten the cycle to find new insights. Just two reference points here from GoDaddy and Albertsons, who are getting that type of analyst productivity value from using Compose and SmartSuggestions as a part of their data cataloging implementation. So the data catalog is helping analysts by enabling them to reuse data assets that already exist, so they don't have to recreate the wheel or recreate the derived data set every time. They're finding what already exists and applying it. And then they're able to work through the discovery and understanding of that data even faster. In Albertson's case, 67% faster. So learning number one, think about how delivering on analyst productivity as part of your implementation may actually get the organization a little bit more focused and helping to drive the data cataloging implementation. And the second recommendation that we have from working with our customers is that formal curation frameworks are actually quite useful. So I know Yannis said that they don't have a notion of formal stewards, and you don't have to have a notion of formal stewards, but this combination of informal curation as well as formal stewardship is one that we see as particularly successful in organizations that have grown into the hundreds or thousands of users. And so I talk a lot about formal data stewardship as being an important investment for the company, but also balancing that with social activation. And I think this notion of curation and how do we socially activate individuals to become curators requires new product features that a number of data cataloging providers provide, but I think Alation has really focused quite significantly there on delivering new product for social activation and curation. And it also requires some thinking and some support for maybe changes in your culture so that you're building a data culture over time. I'll give you a couple of examples from the field to show you what this looks like. Some of our customers have been very creative in how they have developed data culture in their organizations. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a laundry list of product features to look for in a data catalog as you evaluate solutions in the market. I apologize for the laundry list, but there is a white paper on our resources page. I'll go beyond the laundry list and share some details. 5 product features to look for in a data catalog that particularly address social activation. One of those features is pretty foundational for Alation, and that is the notion of, by observing the behaviors of analysts in the organization, you can actually make better recommendations to analysts about how to use data. We call that behavior IO, and that is a unique feature unique to Alation, how we use an ability to parse the log files of analytics users to create recommendations. So I mentioned behavior IO is critical to maintaining the ability to make recommendations back to an analyst community and deliver on productivity. Intelligent search is something that we talk about in the data cataloging community quite a bit. I think when you're looking at intelligent search features, you want to make sure that the notion of a data asset is well represented, and that you're just not searching amongst technical terms, but really there's a business glossary that's feeding that search to translate the technical into the business relevant. And then I would look for data recommendations like we saw in SmartSuggestions, whether it's that interface or another, machine learning being part of the platform, and then this ability to crowdsource and support collaboration. As I mentioned, it's not all about product and technology. So these are images that from some of our customers who have thought just as thoughtfully about creating a culture that supports curation and an appreciation for data. I have never before in my career seen a metadata dual cake. That cake was awarded to the team that produced the most documentation in a contest that they ran at General Electric. And so that's a very creative way to get folks engaged in some fun around sharing documentation with others. Express Scripts ran a somewhat similar program, yet they focused on branding their meetings docu-jams, and they would hold several hour sessions in the afternoon to get analysts together to do some more crowdsourced curation, give them a t-shirt and have them promote the docu-jam as a kind of a hackathon type concept. And then on the far right hand side, you see some postcards that eBay used early on in their implementation, which now has grown into the thousands of users, where they introduced Alation with a focus on this productivity message. What will you do with all that extra time now in the summer that you have, since Alation is saving you 20% in productivity? Many of those customers have had similar growth paths to what you see in this slide. On the left-hand side, you see some of the actual adoption of active users that they spiked within our customer base. And so we are actually seeing significant results from those programs. And so deliver analyst productivity first. Think about activating your data both socially and through formal stewardship initiatives. And the last piece of advice I'll leave everyone with is do not forget to govern your data. The accuracy of the recommendations that are being made, the concern for PII issues and compliance issues. It is important that we're thinking about catalogs as a way of changing behaviors in our organization, as well as providing discovery opportunities for new insights. We recently released a feature that I think helps to change behaviors by leveraging some of that same recommendation technology and SmartSuggestions that I showed you earlier, but in highlighting with a stoplight metaphor the data that is appropriate or the algorithms that are the logic that's appropriate to use, and the data and logic that maybe is inappropriate to use, or in this case, the red highlight means that the state abbreviation has been a table that's been deprecated. And yellow would be a warning. This might be PII information. Don't join it with this other data set. So a quick snapshot of how that data catalog with analyst productivity features can start to help actually change behaviors as part of your governance program. And that's why we see a wide variety of users leveraging Alation, not just the analysts, not just the data stewards, but also governance teams and data engineering teams, because of some of these capabilities that are built into the product and help define the scope of a data catalog and where it can have impact in your organization. So I know that was a super quick kind of number of resources on the Alation resources page, alation.com/resources, that you can go to flush through those thoughts in more detail. And as we open it up to questions, I'll also leave you with this link if you're interested in how some third-party observers of the market, in this case GigaOM, are evaluating data catalogs and looking at their impact. This is a free analyst report that is available for download. And with that, I will open it up to just a few questions if we can squeeze them in here for either myself or Yannis. So Yannis, it looks like there were a few more questions that came in around your organization and how different users are interacting. I think the one that we didn't touch on maybe is what your data management team looks like and what role do they have in your process. I know we talked about mostly consumers of data being involved with Alation. How does the process work with the data management team, and what does that team look like?
Well, yes, thank you for the question. The data management team is primarily on our IT side of the shop. We sit on the business side, but we have a very strong collaboration with them, and we prioritize their ingestion queue and making sure that the activities that they do are aligned with the activities that we have as a data science team. And quite often we operate as the in-between team between our IT data management and the business users.
Excellent, thanks, Yannis. And there was a question that came in that I think is a little related. The question says that I assume that you have data that moves through different steps before it's ready to be made visible to end users. Do you use or track this type of information in Alation, or you track its existence and process using a separate tool? And the Alation capability answer to that is that we do have the capability to track the processing of data through different physical stores of that data and different transformation steps that happen throughout the process. Alation integrates with data wrangling and self-service data prep tools that help with that support. Yannis, I don't know if you have any comments that you'd like to make specifically on what the team that you work with might be using.
Yeah, of course. I mean, certainly the topic that I didn't touch is that our data go through several transformations. I mean, my team prefers working on the raw data, but certainly that is not always possible with when we talk about data that we bring to our business users. So using Alation, we do expose, or the plan is to expose certain transformations that they are better for the end user, while at the same time we keep track of the same information as the data element gets transformed from in its different incarnations. And how we do that is using the suite of API tools that the Alation catalog provides.
Fantastic. And I'm going to try to squeeze one more question in here. We have a couple of folks who have asked for a live demo, so I will point you to the Alation website. As I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we're happy to provide demos as follow-up to the content here. So please request a demo on the button on our website for that. The last question we'll cover, Yannis, since we did spend a bit of time on a screenshot of data quality being provided within a data catalog page. There's a follow-up question as to how that data quality is determined and fed into that catalog page.
Yes, we are using our own process and script running on the data element, and we extrapolate our definition of the data quality that we then expose through Alation as part of the suite of information around a variable or any data element.
And we see that more broadly with a lot of Alation customers, that they already have a data quality tool of choice that has been part of their data management processes. And so the APIs that are available in Alation can connect to scripts that you've written or more formal tools that customers have in place to surface those data quality scores into the catalog page and provide additional context then for the quality of that particular data asset. There also is a profiling feature in Alation, which while not a complete data quality tool, does give you a sense of the shape of the data and what type of data elements are included in that data set. With that, Yannis, I think we've run out of time. There still are a number of questions. Thank you for being a very lively audience. Yannis, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your perspective. And we look forward to hearing more in the future of how Exelon and ComEd are transforming the utility space with a very rich analytics program.
Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. So that's the end of our webinar. Thank you everyone for attending, and until next time, we'll wish everyone a good day.